This is a short presentation to act as a reminder on how to put together your portfolio for the practical units in the ILM Level 3 award and certificate qualifications for coaches. Today I'm going to go through some of the basic principles that we've already covered on induction and in workshops, but just to give you a reminder so that when you do get to the point where you're putting together your portfolio or you're actually starting to do your practical work, this gives you a reference point. I'm going to take you through a few slides, talk through each slide, and hopefully this will be helpful to you. So what's in this presentation? We're going to review the practical units, and I will talk about 301, 302 and 303 and explain which ones you will be working on personally. We will remind ourselves about the ILM recording system and complete how to complete units 301, 302 and 303. I'll take you through some step-by-step pointers and some tips and tricks. So this presentation is likely to be about 15 minutes. So a quick reminder, first of all, what's in the qualification. Regardless of whether you are doing the ILM Level 3 award in coaching or the certificate in coaching, you will be completing 3 units. You will be completing the knowledge unit, Unit 300, which is how you cover your knowledge, and that is addressed by the assignment. I'm not talking about the assignment on today's presentation. I'll be making another short video to cover that. If you are doing the ILM Level 3 award, then you will be completing Unit 301, and that requires 6 hours of coaching. If you're doing the ILM Level 3 certificate, you will be doing 12 hours of coaching, and therefore Unit 302 is applicable. Finally, Unit 303, everybody completes that unit. It's a summary reflection unit and covers either the 6 hours or the 12 hours of coaching that you've completed. So here we are, a summary. The Unit 301 for the award, 6 hours of coaching. Unit 302 for the certificate, 12 hours of coaching. And finally, 303 is the focused and reflective unit that we complete at the end. Just a point of reference, you are referred to in all the ILM paperwork as the learner. The coachee is the person or persons that you're working with. So let's start with the practical unit. 301 for your award and 302 for your certificate. They are identical. All the criteria are the same. They read the same. The only difference is the number of coaching hours. So 6 hours or 12 hours. The unit is designed to cover the whole coaching cycle, starting with contracting, then moving through diagnostics and planning, then moving through regular coaching out to completion and conclusion at the end. So the whole coaching cycle. And in order to achieve your practical unit, you will document each of those stages. So you will use a contract or agreement at the beginning. Normally that's an internal document or one that you've devised yourselves. You will record your sessions, you will record your planning, you will record your reflections, and you will also ask your coachee for feedback. As well as that, you'll be engaging in regular supervision with your tutor. That could be me or it could be another member of the team. So the key themes for the practical units: coaching must be contracted, it must be planned, there must be goals identified. You are required to use a minimum of 2 diagnostic or assessment tools. So that could be a coaching wheel, it could be a questionnaire, it could be something like the Learning Styles questionnaire or the Hogan and Champagne. It might be that you use a SWOT analysis, or you might even have access to other tools that you use internally in your organisation. You must demonstrate that you've used a suitable coaching model. For the vast majority of people, that will be the GROW model, but you may choose to use the OSCAR or another coaching model. That's absolutely fine. They're all pretty much the same in the complexion that they have. You are required to demonstrate that you have shown the use of the key coaching skills of questioning and listening and all the good communication, really. And you must reflect on every session that you complete and gather feedback from your coachee every time. We recommend you do this orally for the vast majority of your sessions, but at the end of your sessions with your coachee, you can use the ILM feedback form We'll talk about the forms a little bit later. Some people do choose to do the recording forms every coaching session. So you may decide to offer your coachee the chance to do written feedback every time or every other session. One way or another, you must gather feedback each time. And then finally, you will need to engage in a minimum of 2 supervision sessions with your tutor. One of those would be linked to an observation. So if I'm your tutor, I will either set up an observation with you, or I will ask you to send me a recording of one of the sessions that you've completed. Please don't do the last session. It does make it quite difficult. We need a session maybe somewhere in the middle, perhaps session 3 or 4, and that will form the basis of probably our most significant supervision conversation. So what forms do you use? Here's the reminder. You will be using a cover sheet for each coachee. All this does is it outlines the number of hours that you've done with each coachee. So if you have 2 coachees, then you'll have 2 cover sheets. If you only have 1, you'll just have 1 cover sheet. It's as simple as that. Do remember that the maximum number of coachees you can have is 2. So if you are doing the larger certificate, you need to get your 12 hours out of 2 coachees. There's no negotiation on that. It's an ILM restriction. I have tried a couple of times in the past to get some flexibility on that, but because it's nationally agreed in the standards, we're not allowed to change that requirement. Planning form. I would expect you to start the planning form either at contracting or straight after contracting, identifying a little bit of information about your coachee, what their goals are, how you think the coaching will help them, and so on, to really demonstrate why you've contracted with them. So this should be done 1 per coachee. With the diagnostics forms, exactly the same, 1 per coachee, identifying which tools you plan to use. And I'm always very happy for you to send over completed forms so that I can have a little look at those before you submit them as part of your portfolio. And the other tutors would be the same, happy to see forms that you've completed. Then form 4 and 5 we use a lot more often. Every time you do a session, please complete a session record, which is really like a set of minutes saying what you've discussed, and also your reflective log on each session, which is probably the most important record in tracking your development as a coach. A couple of points on those forms. If the coaching record asks you to make a note of where you've been ethical and non-judgmental, it's really good to come up with an example. If it asks you to comment on feedback that you've given, it's good to actually note what kind of feedback. So if you've been observant with a coachee and you've given them some feedback on how well they're progressing, or that they've been very positive about engaging in the coaching, that's the sort of thing you can record there. Finally, form 6, the feedback form. I mentioned that on the previous slide. This is the form you would give out at the end of your series of sessions, or more frequently if you choose. Now form 7 I'm going to come back to because I've got a separate slide for that, so we're going to skip that for now because it's just an indexing form. Finally, in this section I'd like to refer to form 10. Every time you have supervision with your tutor, we're going to prompt you to use the supervision form, and on this form you should reference the things that maybe you've brought to supervision, the things that we've discussed, some of the thoughts, ideas or reflections that have come from our supervision, and what you're taking away. It's quite a short and quite simple form, but we need to have at least 2 of those in your portfolio by the end of the process. So let's think about our key themes now for the final unit, which is unit 303. So once you've done all your practical and you've documented everything in the way that I've just described, you need to take a moment to step back and think about your whole journey. What have you learned? What's working really well? What do you still need to fine-tune? It's a very reflective unit, so it's a look back, and it's also going to include a look forward. So we're going to be asking you to do a summary of your learning and consider your performance as a coach, and you'll need to draw on all the records that we just mentioned in order to do that, as well as planning your future development. So how do you want to improve when you finished your ILM? What do you still need to practice? What do you still need to learn? What direction are you going in? So for example, if you've identified that you lack confidence in using coaching tools and techniques, you might highlight some of those areas on your plan and then you might think about how you could improve on those areas. That might involve further training, further practice, attending supervision, and this is an area that you can discuss in your tutorial with your tutor when you've come to finalise the end of your journey. So the forms that you would use for the Reflection Unit 303, Unit 8 is an index form. I'll come back to that, as I said I would with number 7. Form 9, would be your CPD log for future development, planning what your next moves would be as a coach. 10, your reflection form on, 10 is the supervision form that I create or your tutor creates when we've done your observation, so that will have been sent to you. Form 11 is the one I've already mentioned, which is your own record of supervision. And then Form 12, which is really an important form, we ask you to do a final reflection. And this is a form that we've created. It's not part of the ILM kit, but we've created it to fill a gap in the criteria. So on that form, we ask you to reflect on your contracting meeting, to reflect on the skills you've used, the things that you think you do really well, the things that you think you still need to work on. So my advice would be, when you've finished your coaching hours, do Form 12 first, and then you can do your CPD log, and that will link nicely together. Finally, Form 13 is an admin form. It's just to authenticate your portfolio. You put your name on there, you put your ILM number on there. That would have been sent to you by email by myself at the beginning of the process. And that just confirms that you are submitting your own work. So I said that I would mention Forms 7 and 8, and this is something your tutor will help you with. It is simply an index form system. So for your practical unit, you use Form 7, and for your reflection unit, you use Form 8. And all you need to do is create a list of all the forms you're submitting in your portfolio, give them a number, keep it simple, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., and then reference it against the criteria using the index forms. Now in your folders, you'll see that you've got these forms, and also that there are examples of how they can be completed. Plus we can cover this in a tutorial. So all we're doing is linking the forms that you've completed for your coaching practice and your reflection, and we're linking them into the criteria in the unit. So it's a simple referencing system. I always say to everyone, don't worry about these forms, we will help you with them. Finally, a few tips and tricks. My biggest tip is do not leave these forms till the end. Do them as you go. If you type them up as you go, you will find that you save an awful lot of time because it's very difficult to recreate them at the end. Everything must be typed up unless you've got a special need or something happens which means that you cannot access a computer, in which case you need to let one of us know so that we can help you with that. Feedback at every session. Ask a couple of questions, get into the habit of having some questions ready so that you're not stumped at the end of each session. We don't just want the coachee to say you're wonderful, although I'm sure you will be. We also want them to give you some specific useful feedback to reflect on. Another tip is to read the units before you compile your portfolio. You'll find the actual units in the second section of your folder. Whether you have a digital folder or a paper folder, they'll be in section 2. It's really helpful to read through unit 301 or 302, whichever you're doing, and then 303 before you pull everything together. It'll give you a greater sense of what you're trying to prove that you have covered. And then do make sure that you book enough time with your tutor so that we can do supervision and have regular contact, and that will help you to achieve your portfolio with ease. Finally, ask for help at any point. Our job is to support you to succeed, so we can give you a helping hand at any stage in the process. So I hope this little video has been helpful as a reminder. Please book in for regular tutorials. If you've got any questions, we're always happy to answer. Good luck.